Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, chapter 18, text 62. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat prasadat parang shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. O Scion of Bharat, surrender unto Him utterly. By His grace you will attain transcendental peace and the supreme and eternal abode. Purport. A living entity should therefore surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in everyone's heart. The previous verse. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart. And that will relieve him from all kinds of miseries of this material existence. By such surrender, not only will one be released from all miseries in this life, but at the end he will reach the Supreme God. The transcendental world is described in the Vedic literature as, from Rig Veda, Tad Vishno Paramang Padam. Since all of creation is the kingdom of God, everything material is actually spiritual. But Paramang Padam specifically refers to the eternal abode, which is called the spiritual sky, or Vaikuntha. In the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is stated, Sarvasya chahang hridi sannivishtaha. The Lord is situated in everyone's heart. So, this recommendation that one should surrender unto the Super Soul sitting within means that one should surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Krishna has already been accepted by Arjuna as the Supreme. He was accepted in the 10th chapter as Parang Brahma Parang Dhama. Arjuna has accepted Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the supreme abode of all living entities, not only because of his personal experience, but also because of the evidence of great authorities like Narada, Asita, Devala and Vyas. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Shrishtam Manamapi Shakti Putram Atra Srurupam Rupam Tasya Gajamurupurim Maturim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Guru Shiyataf Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsra Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This is almost at the end of Bhagavad Gita, which was started with Arjuna lamenting because he didn't want to fight. And then Krishna speaking in various ways to try to convince Arjuna to fight. You say, trying to convince? Well, for God, why is he trying? He can do whatever he likes. But he doesn't interfere with the minute independence that he gives the living entities. So he also has to try. And then it's up to the living entities to decide whether they want to take it or not. He could just brainwash everyone to be robotic, but he doesn't want to, because he likes people to surrender to him. So, he's been successful. That will soon be tested. And Arjuna will agree, Karishe vachanam tava, I will do as you say, what you order. But here in the conclusion of Krishna's teachings, he's not telling Arjuna you have to fight. He's telling Krishna you have to surrender to the Supreme Personality, which has already been established, and as Prabhupada points out in the purport, Arjuna has accepted that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. So the real point, they're both real points, but on a broader cosmic universal terms, not applying only to Arjuna, Krishna's instruction to surrender to him, to Arjuna, means that Arjuna should fight, and for everyone else it means that whatever else they're supposed to do in Krishna's service. So, just a second here. So the admonition is to fully take shelter of Krishna. But you can't do that if you maintain independence. You can't be independent and dependent at the same time. Just like women can't be protected and just do whatever they like. You go out, women going out independently here, there, and then they complain when they're not properly treated. But there's a prescription for that, is that you have to be protected, you have to be dependent. So, Srila Prabhupada, this word sharanam, of course, comes up in the verse which Krishna will rephrase this, tam eva sharanam gacha. The general principle, you should take shelter of him, rephrase it as savadhaman parityaja mamekam sharanam raja. You should surrender to me only. Mamekam sharanam, take only, one thing only. And here also, sarva bhavena bharata. Sarva bhavena means in all respects. That means sada, always, sarvatra, in all places, wherever you may be. Sarvata means, in all respects, without consideration of anything else. And with mind, body and words, one should take shelter. Which means to surrender, to follow the order. That's what it amounts to. It's not just some statement, like I believe in Jesus or something like this, but it's highly consequential. One has to base one's whole life around it in all respects, in all times and places. So, it's a great challenge. Sawal. Urdu word entered Tamil. So a challenge, that's, actually that word challenge, if we see, that's, I don't know what it comes over in Tamil, but the original word means to offer, fight, come and fight. It's going out and aggressively challenging someone. Fight. But it's also the secondary meaning, which is probably a more common meaning now. It means to be challenged also. And that applies on not just... Challenge literally means to offer, to tell someone to come and fight with you. And that may be extended to sports or something, challenge to a game of chess or something like that. So it's also a battle game, right? It's a more peaceful way of having a battle. But it also means to be challenged, and that means to be, if you're challenged, that doesn't necessarily mean by a person, but it can be by circumstances, or some task that is given to you. It would be which is a difficult task. You can do it, but it's going to be difficult. Just like if I decided to learn Tamil, I'm not planning to, but if I did, it would be a great challenge. I think by the grace of Krishna I could do it, but you'd have to work hard. You have to spend time, and it'd be difficult, getting it wrong again and again, and learning so many different words. And first of all, you have to learn the pronunciation. It even took our great linguist Nityananda 1 year to get the pronunciation. So Tamil's an easy language. That's what every Tamil says. Whatever language you grow up with seems to be easy. Russian's an easy language, right? Unless you're a Russian. It's a difficult language. So it would be a challenge. Could do it, but it would be a challenge. So we are challenged by various circumstances. A mother with 3 young children, the husband dies, and in challenging circumstances she brought up her children. So it's like a challenge. It's something very difficult. So Krishna is challenging Arjuna. Arjuna's used to challenges. That's the whole life of Kshatriyas, in both kinds of challenges. Literally, Kshatriyas, they live by challenging, or they die by challenging others and being challenged. And it's nice to read stories about this kind of thing, but actually, to be in a battle situation, it's not an easy thing. We hear about it, just like that son of the king of Virat. He was, when the Kauravas came to steal all their cows, he said, "I'll go out, I'll fight," because his father was away. So I'll fight, I'll kill them all this Bhishma and Drona and Duryodhana and Karna, and he went out there with his eunuch, namely Arjuna, who he didn't know, as his charioteer, and he said, he was driving out, everyone saying, "Jai, all glories to the prince." And he saw them and said, "Hey, drive the chariot back." And the charioteer said, "Come on, what are you doing? You're a Kshatriya, you have to fight." He said, "Well, it's more intelligent to stay alive." He said, and Arjuna, the eunuch, who couldn't put the armor on, because when they brought the armor for him, he pretended he didn't know how to put it on. And so he was trying to convince him, and eventually the boy thought, "Forget all this talk," and he jumped off the chariot and ran. And then the eunuch jumped off and grabbed him. Yeah, Kauravas are looking and say, "Hey, do you see that guy? That looks, the way looks like Arjuna, and the way he moves and everything." So they found out. So it's nice to talk about wars and fighting, and read the Mahabharata, but the real fight is tough. So, challenge, yeah. It's nice to hear about Prabhupada, went to the West, went through so many difficulties, and it's nice to hear about. But then he also gave us a challenge and he made his disciples. He didn't, he gave them a challenge from the very beginning. I mean, even when they didn't even know hardly anything about Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada sent one group of devotees. No, not one group. He sent Mukunda to the West Coast. Go, start something. He didn't even know really what Krishna consciousness was at all. He was initiated, but never shaved his head or even thought about it. Worn devotional clothes, sent him to the West Coast, start something. Then it was a great challenge for the devotees in New York. Prabhupada left them, and they had no idea. How are we going to go on by ourselves? And this way, he was just making new devotees, and people, they're just They knew nothing, because the only one in the movement who knew anything about Krishna consciousness at that time was Prabhupada. So now if you join, there's so many devotees and they know so many things and there's so many books. At that time there were only 3 books, which are Prabhupada's original Bhagavatams. And even now they're difficult to understand, even though the English is been, in my opinion, very well edited. And but Srila Prabhupada's English was non-standard. So it's difficult to understand, especially if you have no idea of this subject matter. That was the only book. So most devotees didn't know anything, but Prabhupada was saying to them, go here, go there, go to London, go to Japan. Gave them a challenge, go out, do something. Trivikram Swami in Taiwan, alone in Taiwan. Even now people don't speak English there. What to speak? I mean, there were a few, but English, the language, the culture, everything completely different. I sent to Taiwan and saying, why are you asking me to send you someone? You're a sannyasi. You can go by yourself. That's all. Send a letter like that. So Prabhupada gave the challenge to all of us, and it is a great challenge for all. Yeah, I wanted to read this. Arjuna had been through many challenges in life, and he'd faced the Kauravas before and defeated them all. Now there are the Kauravas plus many other soldiers. So there's a verse that Shankaracharya composed about this, very nice verse, which Prabhupada also translated. I'll try and read it as well as I can. I can hardly see it. Bhishma Drona Tata Jayadrathat Jala Gandharini Lot Pala Shalya Grahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Vela Kula Ashvathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Vartini Sotirna Kalu Pandavo Rananadi Kaivartaka Keshava, which Srila Prabhupada has translated as follows. And actually it was Hayagriva who put it in verse form as a historical literary aside. Of that terrifying river, of the battlefield of Kurukshetra, over which the Pandavas victoriously crossed, Bhishma and Drona were as the high banks, Jayadratha as the river's water, the king of Gandhara, the blue water lily. King of Gandhara means? Should be Shakuni, I guess. Shalya the shark, that's Kripa the current, Karna the mighty waves, Ashvathama and Vikarna, the dread alligators, and Duryodhana, the very whirlpool. But thou, O Krishna, wast the ferryman. That's, wast is was, but it's poetic, archaic English. So the point is that it was the warrior, the army of the Kauravas was impossible. But Krishna was the ferryman to cross, to carry the Pandavas across the impossible task of defeating the Kauravas. So it was a tremendous challenge. But Tameva Sharanam Gachas Sarva Bhavena Bharata Tat Prasadaj Parang Shantim Sthanam Prapsasi Shashvatam. Krishna told Arjuna that if you surrender completely unto me, then you will cross not only over this present situation, but over all difficult situations and attain to that situation where there are no more difficulties, where there's eternal peace. So that's Krishna's promise to Arjuna. But it's also a great challenge. And actually, we all face challenge in life. So many challenges. All the time. I mean, practically every day someone comes to me and tells me this, that's going on in my life. And everyone feels it's a great challenge, but that's normal. That's just the situation in the material world. Everyone is challenged. It's the dream of Maya that all this will go away and we'll just live peacefully. That's all. I'll just get some nice house in the country, I'll have a nice wife, and a dog, and a cat, and a few cows, and we'll live very peacefully. But then you might get bitten by bugs all night. There's some small thing. Some small thing like that. Or, a gang of people might come and just burn the whole house down, chop your head off, and things like, you don't know. Anything can happen anytime. Hurricane blows the whole house down. The wife runs off with the next door neighbor who's 3 miles away, their teenage son, or the husband runs off because we don't want to be, should be fair. So the husband might run off with the next door neighbor's son. It's also possible. You never know. Anything can happen. So that's the material world. It's designed to make us think that, well, if I just adjust things a little bit this way and that way, everything will be very nice. But reality is different. Even Arjuna, he was such a sentimental fool. Excuse me, Arjuna, but I'm just echoing what Srila Prabhupada said. Is that he thought, well, why don't we, what's the point of this war? Why don't we just not fight? There's no point. Actually, there's no point. You said, hey, Duryodhana, hey, why don't you just be a little bit reasonable and we can just, shake hands and whatever and, let's live peacefully. But it wasn't to be. It wasn't to be. The fight had to be there. So it was a great challenge for Arjuna to fight that fight. But the great challenge we all face in our lives, so many challenges, and we all face situations which are worse than we ever thought they would be. But the greatest challenge of all for Arjuna, even though his challenges are far more than we can ever imagine. I mean, if we were, okay, Srinivas Krishna, now, put on some armor, get a sword, and go and fight the Kauravas. There's no question, you might be able to, carry a glass of water to them after the day's battle or something, to one of the soldiers. You might have that, but fight, forget none of it. I mean, maybe your forefathers are, they're martial people, but they're not. They're more like Duryodhana's side. Really, because they're, it's just aggression, that's all. There's no Krishna consciousness. So, from a fighting kind of race. And also, I'm British, we're discussing, fighting martial attitude. They didn't conquer the whole world just by trickery. There was a lot of fighting, killing, and all this kind of thing. So, but if we were asked to go and fight, what Arjuna had to do, and he had so many challenges. I mean, apart from the fighting, there's challenges to his very character. He was so concerned to maintain good character, to uphold the good name. I mean, naturally he was of good character, but he wanted to uphold the good name of his forefathers. So he accepted the curse of Urvashi to become a eunuch, which for a Kshatriya is the most, and definitely death is far better than becoming a eunuch for a Kshatriya, rather than go against the principles of Dharma. And Urvashi pointed out that, maybe in your earth you have rules like that, but here we don't. In Swarga, we don't have all these rules regulating sex life, otherwise it wouldn't be Swarga. Where would be the fun? So, the Apsaras are there, the Prabhupada sometimes called them heavenly prostitutes. So it's a great challenge. Again, back in the court of Virat, after that, all that was all over. It was understood that Arjuna is Arjuna and not a eunuch. So the king offered, then you should take my daughter. And he said, well, that's not very good because she's confided in me like a daughter, and people would think that she was married to me because while I was doing that 1 year when I was a eunuch, actually there was something going on between us. So to save her good name, but I can't refuse you at the same time, so let her be my daughter-in-law. And then Uttara, she married Abhimanyu. So like that, I mean, it was no doubt she was an extremely beautiful young woman, but Arjuna, he didn't think that now it's an opportunity for me to enjoy, but he always thought in terms of Dharma. But it's a challenge, and even before the battle of Kurukshetra, it's a challenge, how to think, how to understand, and to submit to Krishna. And that's the great challenge, because Arjuna, he thought he was a great Pandit, and he's spoken Dharma. I have spoken Dharma, Krishna. You don't understand, but now I've told you, so now you can understand. That's what he was saying practically to Krishna. Adharma bhibhavad Krishna. It will be adharma, Krishna. He's telling Krishna. Krishna tells you, yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata abhutanam dharmasya tadam. I come to rectify adharma, and you are telling me that I'm engaging, King Karmani Gauri Mamne Yogyasi Kesha. You're engaging me in this horrible war. You don't understand Dharma, I understand. Well, Krishna says, actually, I understand Dharma. You don't understand Dharma. So, but Arjuna's thing, I'm Arjuna. I didn't accept Urvashi, I didn't accept Uttara. I'm the great authority on Dharma. And Krishna said, you're talking like a fool. You think you know so much? And then Arjuna gave his ultimatum. Nayotsa, I'm not going to fight. So it was like an egoistic thing. I'm right, you're wrong. And then he accepted at some point. Sarvametad ritam manye yang mang darisikesha. Actually, you're right. Which he didn't say it, but it also meant, I'm wrong. So, alright, so you admit you're wrong. Now, you have to, then what do? You have to take fully shelter of Krishna. Instead of taking shelter of our mind, what we think are our own ideas, because yadahankaram ashritya nayotsya iti manyase. Krishna had said, Arjuna had said, nayotsya iti govindam uktva tushnam vabhuvaha. I will not fight, he said, and became all depressed. Now Krishna says to him, if you take shelter of your ahankar, your egoism, and you go on saying, nayotsya, I won't fight, mityaisha vyavasayaste prakritis tvam niyokshati. You'll be misdirected, and anyway you'll have to fight. You'll go off to the forest and sit in the forest and start your meditation, and then you'll be thinking about, well, actually they can't do without me, and you'll have to go back and fight anyway. You can't go and sit in the forest and meditate while this war is going on. You'll have to. So if you don't do it in my order, then you'll come and say, well, actually I thought about it and actually I thought I should come back. You'll have to fight. So if you continue to think, I won't fight, then you'll be taking shelter of your egoism. And Krishna says, Tameva sharanam gacha, you take shelter of me. Don't take shelter of your egoism. So that was a great challenge for Arjuna. To admit, not only admit I'm wrong, but to fully take shelter of Krishna, giving up all his personal ideas. There's another thing, Arjuna, when he says something that, Kshatriya, that's it. But he said, I won't fight. And now Krishna is telling, that's his Sarvadhaman Parityaja also. That I said I won't fight, and I'm Arjuna. And what I say, I do it. So if I say I'm not going to fight, I'm not going to fight. So, then you have to accept this, just like Yudhishthira had to accept that you have to say Ashvatthama is dead. I'm not going to say it, you have to say it. Why don't you say it, Krishna? No, you have to say it. But I never told a lie in my life. You have to say it. You have to say it. So, it's a great challenge for Yudhishthira. It's a great challenge for Arjuna to fight fully taking shelter of Krishna, to completely surrender to Krishna. It's a great challenge for every one of us, even though we would be lucky to be bored as a bug and Arjuna not seeing walks on us and kills us. We would be lucky. But, for us, it's a great challenge to give up our attachments and our preconceptions, misconceptions. But that's the challenge for all of us, to surrender to Krishna. And it's the real challenge in our life is not that my husband ran off with the next door neighbor's son, daughter, wife or husband or whatever, or that, that we don't have enough money, or that there's no water in Tamil Nadu, or there's no electricity in Tamil Nadu. Well, there is some. So the water pump's going on now. But these are not the real, these are illusory challenges. It's not that they're totally unreal. They do exist, but the real challenge is to surrender to Krishna. That's the challenge for all of us. And everything that goes on in the world is just a diversion from that. That we're getting worked up about what to do about this, what to do about that. Save the whales, save the dogs, save the cats, and save the American children, not the Pakistani children, and like that. So, all these different challenges. So, they are real in one sense, but to focus on them as being the essence of life, or this is the real thing we have to discuss, that diverts us away from the real challenge, which is to surrender to Krishna. Which means it's giving up our egoism. It's not a very easy thing. So, Srila Prabhupada took the challenge of his guru, came to the Western world, and was challenged at every moment. And even after starting ISKCON, it's not they all lived happily ever after. Those kind of things are in fairy stories, which telling fairy stories to children, that is actually child abuse. Because it ends up with they lived happily ever after. They should tell the real story. They got married and they thought they would live happily ever after. But no one ever lives happily ever after. If the happiness is an illusion, and they don't live ever, even if they feel happy, that happiness is an illusion. It's full of all kinds of struggles, and you don't live forever. So it's actually child abuse to tell people fairy stories. You should teach them Bhagavad Gita. That now you're young and you're just running around playing as a little kid, but anything can happen at any time. Even while you're a kid. It's not that life gets tough later. Even as a little kid, there can be so many difficulties and so many challenges, which is why the parents and the guardians, they're supposed to shelter the children for some time, just like a young plant. It needs to be protected. When it gets bigger, it can stand on its own. But in the beginning, it has to be protected. But part of the protection is training them. Instead of training them to think that actually the world's very nice and you can live happily ever after, to tell them that these are the challenges you're going to have to face. And not only, even all these challenges, you have money, financial challenges, health challenges, all kinds of challenges throughout your life, personal challenges. For no reason, people just come and are nasty to you, and you have all these kinds of challenges. But the real challenge is that we have to face repeated birth and death, and suffering, old age, disease. The real challenge is to get out of this cycle of birth and death. This is how children should be trained from the beginning of life. Kaumara acharat pragyo dharman bhagavataniha. Duralabhang manusham janma tadapya dhruvam artadam. We should train from the beginning that this human life you have attained is temporary. It's not going to last long, but it's very valuable. So, right from the beginning, you should learn about these things and learn to worship Krishna. So we're all faced with this challenge. Prabhupada took the challenge to take Krishna consciousness to the Western world. It was almost impossible. I mean, by material calculation, it was not possible for anyone to bring Krishna consciousness to the West. And it's not that Prabhupada's godbrothers didn't know that it wasn't wanted, but they hadn't taken up that challenge. Maybe they thought someone will come later and take it up. So let's do what we can now. The situation is not very favorable now, so let us do what we can for the time being, and later someone may take up the challenge of, even if they were thinking of it at all, they may have thought like that. We don't know exactly what they're thinking of. We don't know exactly what they were thinking. There is some record that Dola Govinda Shastri, I met him sometimes in Cuttack. I don't know if he's still alive. He told me when he was a Sanskrit student. Later he became one of the very prominent Sanskrit people in the whole of Orissa. So he was studying at in Calcutta, and he was living with Srila Maharaj, Bhakti Rakshak Srila Maharaj, and he was probably studying and not with them, but some Karmi school, and living with them. And he was devoted as a boy. And Srila Maharaj was living with Prabhupada in Calcutta. He was renting half of the house that Prabhupada was renting, subletting. So they used to have many discussions, and someone brought this Dola Govinda. He told that many years later that what was that? That they were discussing at some point that there's this passage in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Pritivite ache jatanagradi gram savata pracha hoive morna. He said, well, what, they were discussing among themselves, well, what do you think, what do you all think of that? You know, the Krishna consciousness will spread all over the world. And, well, maybe it's just, allegorical, bombastic kind of word. Maybe they mean just in India, or just in Bengal, or just in the Gauriya Math, or just in our Math, which broke off from the Gauriya Math. So, and then Abhay, it seems he hadn't been in the meeting at the time, and they asked him what do you think, and he said, someone will do it. Some fool will do it. Not you, he said. So, Prabhupada, he had that idea. To go to the West and preach Krishna consciousness. And it was just unthinkable. I mean, even to get there in the first place, to get your visa, to to get clearance to leave India. People didn't go to America much in those days. You have to have income tax here, that you're not running away from the country to avoid tax or debts or such things. And then all that, and then how is he going to go? He doesn't have money to go. So even to get out, and then heart attacks on the way, and then go to Butler, Pennsylvania, living with the meat eaters, nice people, but not very interested in Krishna consciousness, come to New York. Prabhupada had the idea he could preach to the leaders of society, the intellectuals, the politicians, and it's clear from Prabhupada's first canto purports. And his whole strategy when he was in India, he'd meet the governor of UP and the Dr. Radha Krishnan and Lal Bahadur Shastri, the Prime Minister. That was his policy. And he came to America and he ended up with the crazy hippies. They were the ones who took it up. So he went along with them. So many challenges. And then he gave, he said, go to Japan, go to Australia, Malaysia. Probably most people in America never heard of Malaysia, I would guess, at that time. Because education means you learn every state in America, and then you might have heard, definitely you've heard the name of England, France, Germany, but things like Taiwan, he was saying yesterday when I was talking about learning Thai. Thai is the language of Thailand, and Taiwan they speak Chinese. So, like that. Even when I was in Thailand in the 1980s, I told everybody as well, I'm in Thailand. They say, oh, Taiwan. I have no idea about all these things. So, going to all different places, Prabhupada gave that challenge, and he said that this Krishna consciousness movement is a challenge to the whole materialistic civilization. He directly challenged. Prabhupada is very challenging. That I recorded, I put that anecdote in that book on Swami Sriki and Srila Prabhupada's service, that one devotee, what was his name? Bahushira? He said, Prabhupada would always say when he was coming to Los Angeles, bring the professors. So this devotee, I think it was Bahushira, I can't remember his name. He'd go to the university in advance, long in advance, speak to the professors, cultivate them, make friends with them, and then after some time, our guru's coming in, would you like to meet? And Prabhupada would smash them. He would just smash them. And he would not just call them names, but he would point out that you're supposed to be theologians, he would say to them, and you do not even know what kind of theologians are you. You don't know what is God. You don't know what is the soul. Like this. And then they would be fried and they wouldn't come again, and Prabhupada would say, bring more, bring more. Prabhupada was in a martial spirit. He inculcated that in his disciples to fight this owl civilization. We have to fight these owls. So it's not easy. It's a great challenge to go on fighting and going to different places, setting up the movement in places where people don't know and they don't want to know. Jayadvaita Swami recently told me he'd been in Egypt and he was suggesting we could send someone to Egypt. Maybe 5 years ago it might have been better. Now it's a very tense situation. You could still preach there. Doesn't mean you can't preach there, but even when the situation was more peaceful, now it's very disturbed, it would be a great challenge to preach there because people are mostly Muslim, some Christians. We don't know the language, don't know the culture, and it would be very, very difficult to preach there, no doubt. So who wants to take up the challenge? But then I was thinking, actually, I've been thinking this for years, we really have to do something about it. Thinking doesn't, Arjuna wasn't just thinking about killing Karna and everything, he had to go out and do it, right? But the best or the most intelligent young people from most of these Muslim countries, they go to study outside, in England, in America, and in India also. So maybe the best thing to do is target them here and then train them up and send them back. That's one thought. Otherwise, cracking the Muslim world is a great challenge, which our movement hasn't taken up at all so far. I mean, it's not that there isn't preaching in the Muslim countries, but we haven't taken it up very seriously as a mission. So, yeah, Prabhupada left us so many challenges to change the whole world. It's a great challenge. It's not just like Arjuna had to fight so many soldiers, and it wasn't an easy thing. When Krishna told him, take shelter of me, I will deliver you, that doesn't mean that Krishna is saying that, okay, just, I'll hug you and everything will be nice. No, he was telling Arjuna, you take shelter of me. And how do you do that? Don't look at me, turn around, show your back to me, and go and face all those warriors. And the arrows will be coming at you. Don't worry, I'm behind you. But not that you just, take shelter of me. Yes, Krishna, I'm going to take shelter, I'm going to go meditate on you in the forest. Not like that. You have to face those arrows, lances, pikes, spears, all kinds of weapons. You have to look Bhishma in the eye and shoot him. You have to, Drodha, who taught you how to use those arrows, you have to shoot him. I told you to do it, you do it. You want to take shelter of me? I will deliver you, but this is what you have to do. Not easy. No easy way out. Nothing easy. Krishna didn't offer him anything easy. That Prabhupada said, he didn't offer you something easy. It's a very great challenge. For Arjuna to release the arrows wasn't a difficult thing. I mean, he's doing it in his dreams, probably literally. Because something you do all the time, you tend to dream about it also. But to have to face his gurus and fight them, that was the real challenge. But he did so because he was convinced, I have to surrender to Krishna. So Prabhupada, he gave us all this individual challenge to surrender to Krishna. And it's not an easy thing. Our movement is very different from other movements in which they say, just take a mantra. Easy. Or you just take some mercy. All you have to do is get the Guru's mercy. And that's all. Nothing difficult to do. But the Guru's mercy, just like Krishna's mercy, came to Arjuna. How did Krishna's mercy come? Go and do exactly the very thing which you don't want to do. And you so much don't want to do it that you're willing to defy even Krishna, who's your lifelong friend and who you know to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You're so much against it, you have to do that thing. So Krishna, he didn't make it easy for Arjuna, and it's not easy for us. If we say no meat, no fish direct, forget all that. It's too difficult. So, or if we say that all these rules, it's too difficult for people, so just forget them all and just love Krishna. But Krishna didn't tell Arjuna, well, you just love me and do whatever you like. He said, you just love me and do whatever I like. That is Krishna consciousness. That is what it means to be Krishna conscious. If we think, I will do what I like, then it's not Krishna conscious. We have to know what Krishna wants and do that. And it's a great challenge, because when we're in Maya, that's what we think. We think we should do what I like. And when we're in Krishna consciousness, we think, I should do what Krishna likes. Even if we don't like. And actually, if we do what Krishna wants us to do, then sthanam prapsasi shashvatam. Then we'll find the param shantim sthanam prapsasi shashvatam. Then we'll attain the position of eternal peace. Otherwise, it's not possible. We have to go through that. We have to accept the test. So, the test isn't over. It's not that Prabhupada left and then, now we can relax. Just like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, said, soon I'll be passed away from the world, and then you can all relax and do what you like. Then I won't be here to harass you anymore. But he left his challenge behind. He said about his own guru that he lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. But the follower doesn't just mean someone who's, well, I'm a Prabhupada disciple. I'm a Prabhupada disciple, so but a follower doesn't mean that you just sat down sometime in a sacrifice and had some beads given to you. To follow, it's a great challenge to follow. Sarva bhavena, in all respects, in all times, all places, all circumstances, mind, body, words. We're always thinking what I want to do, I want to do, I want to do. And after all, you can dovetail everything. Well, yeah, you can. Well, not everything. You can't dovetail cow slaughter in Krishna's service, for instance. You can't dovetail sense gratification. You can't. And you may think, well, I do what I like for Krishna. But as long as you're saying, well, I'm doing what I like, it's not really for Krishna at all. It's something like the lower level of karma yoga, where you do what you want and then you okay, give a little bit to Krishna. That's not bhakti. That's a step, you can say. But dovetailing what we want to do and for Krishna, that's not surrender to Krishna. You can say it's a step in the right direction, but it's not surrender to Krishna. And that step is not enough to step over the ocean of birth and death. That won't carry us there. We'll still be in the material whirlpool. So to fully surrender to Krishna, that's a great challenge. To spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, it's a great challenge, because we have to challenge the materialistic society. Some members of ISKCON, they say that, well, you see, you can follow any culture and practice Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada spoke of cultural conquest, but there's this idea, well, actually you can follow Western culture or any culture, but that's not correct. I mean, obviously in the Western world you have to make some adjustments, as Prabhupada himself did. But Western culture, or any sense gratification culture, is for sense gratification. And sense gratification is not the platform on which to serve Krishna. So if we say, well, we'll do the Western style Krishna consciousness, like we'll have instead of having a kirtan, we'll have a mantra rock dance. So, like rock music, which is meant, it just stirs up the lower emotions. The very music the very style of music stirs up the lower emotions. And I don't know much about chakras, but I'm sure it stimulates the lower chakras and all this kind of thing. So, the very sound of the music it evokes lust and anger. It brings out, the very type of music brings out the worst in people. So, it's not very conducive for Krishna consciousness. It might attract a lot of people, but to what? Not to Krishna. So there's an example that and then we all, it's just like in the West, it's quite common that men and women, when they meet each other, they don't know each other, they're in public, and they just give each other a little embrace. Which, even husband and wife don't do that in India, even now. Even now some of them hold their hands. But to publicly embrace, but you don't even know each other. And you just give a little embrace. It's just cat and dog society, as Prabhupada would say. So, the idea that, well, all different cultures, and then we're saying like Indian culture, because Prabhupada said Indian culture, and then they point out, sati, rape, corruption. But that wasn't the Indian culture that Prabhupada was talking about, though. When Prabhupada said he wanted Indian culture, he didn't mean that you go around looking for all the worst things, but you follow the Indian culture as followed by Draupadi, Arjuna, and generations of people even today. The real culture. So this idea, you just follow any culture and you just add Hare Krishna. But Prabhupada spoke about cultural conquest, about changing people's whole way of thinking and acting, their motivations, which is required. If people are to become Krishna conscious, you can't remain being a materialistic demon. It's not possible. You have to, or even being a materialistic nice guy, or whatever it may be. A lot of the nice guys are actually demons, but with a mask, that's all. So, there has to be a change. But to affect that change, it's a tremendous challenge. To change people's whole way of thinking and acting, and in many ways it is easier to go along with the whole society. And say, well, what's wrong with sending them to Kami school? Prabhupada also went to Kami school. Yeah, and so did everyone else, but only Prabhupada came out as Prabhupada. No one else came out as Prabhupada. And he recommended to have the Gurukul. And it's a great challenge because, as Prabhupada said, if you try to be Krishna conscious, the whole world will be against you. But if you have Krishna, then if you have the faith that Krishna wants this and He's with us, then we can cross over. Just like Prabhupada, he went alone to America. But he had faith that Krishna is with me. My Guru is with me. Let me try. I don't lose anything. If I pass away here in America unknown, then I passed away on serving the Guru's order. It's not that you have to be in Vrindavan. If you're fully engaged in serving the order of the Guru, then Krishna's not going to say, oh, you aren't in Vrindavan. Okay. You have to come back to material world. No, not at all. So, Prabhupada took up that challenge, and it was practically impossible, but taking up the challenge, it's not just like this, what's that name, that Virat Kumar, what's that boy's name? You blow a trumpet, do, then you march out to battle, and you say, oh my God, run back again. So it's not a matter, you have to, it's like every moment by moment, all kinds of things definitely will come up, all kinds of difficulties. You can't live in this world without there being all kinds of difficulties. And if you try to preach Krishna consciousness, you'll get more difficulties. And if we tell people that, then they'll think, well, I don't want this. I came to religion so I could get stress relief. Or I can get some peace in my life. Just like Krishna tells Arjuna here. You can get param shanti. Tat prasadat param shanti. You can get it, but first you have to take shelter. And taking shelter means you have to go through so many things. You'll get, even while you're fighting, you have the supreme peace. Because you know that Krishna is with me. Whereas you can live peacefully in the forest, forgetting Krishna, and you'll be in anxiety and you'll be preparing for another birth in this material world. So when Krishna says param shantim, then Arjuna might have thought, great, at last Krishna understood. That's all we want. Shanti, shanti, shanti. I'll go away from it. But Arjuna understood, no. He understood by now that taking shelter of Krishna, he didn't let Arjuna off so easily. He didn't think, Arjuna, after all, you've had a long life, done a lot of good things, okay, I understand, I'm empathetically listening to you here, and, everyone has their limits, so after all, Arjuna, I think it's a good idea. Yeah, alright, I'll explain to Duryodhana, everyone, you're not a coward actually, but you're just suffering from some kind of battlefield, pre-battle traumatic syndrome or something like that. We'll give it a name. In other words, you're a damn coward and you're passing urine in your pants or something like that. But we'll give it a good psychological name, and then Duryodhana, he's a demon, so he'll accept all this mundane psychology, and there'll be no problem. So Krishna didn't say that. No excuse. Arjuna, he had all these excuses. Krishna just, very one by one took them all to pieces and left Arjuna with just two options: to surrender to Krishna, or with no excuses, just to be Beisharam, shameless. No, well, I understand everything you say. You've defeated me philosophically, but I'm still not going to do what you want. At least he would have to say that. Whereas nowadays you discuss with people, you defeat them in all ways philosophically, and they say, well, I still don't accept what you say. For no reason whatsoever. When they have no arguments, either they just leave or they call you bad names. Actually, if people call you bad names, you should understand your preaching is good. Because it means that they're just resorting to below the belt tactics, that's all. Because they have no proper arguments to give you. So in one sense it's good. They're admitting their defeat. Of course, we also call people fools and rascals, but then we give very good reasoning as to why they're fools and rascals. So that's different. So, the challenge is there for our whole movement and for every one of us. It's a great challenge to establish Krishna consciousness in the world. The challenge didn't go away when Prabhupada went away. He left us with so much work to do. And, of course, you may say, well, let's go along with the modern society and, later we can do something. But it doesn't work. Just like Arjuna could have said, well, let me take a sabbatical. I'll go off for a year or two and think about it. No, the challenge is right now. You're going to face it or not face it? Just like Prabhupada's Gopras, they might have thought, well, okay, we'll just do our bhajan and we'll do something. They did preaching. It's not they didn't do preaching. But the real big challenge, well, let's leave it till, maybe when the situation becomes better. It never becomes better. Never becomes better. In this material world, you think, we'll wait for the situation to become right. Maya makes the situation that is never right. Maya never makes the situation, now it's all very good. Maya always makes difficult. That's her job. She doesn't come and say, all right, now everything's nice. Now, you just go and give a lecture and everyone will fall down and surrender and fully give up all their materialistic ideas and fully surrender to Krishna. It's not like that. It's a challenge at every step. And Prabhupada, in dealing with his disciples, all their misconceptions, egoisms, and so many, what to speak of the outside world, and even within his own movement. So this idea that we'll just, let's go along with the present society, and, after all, they're nice people. You see, they became upset when 20 American children got killed. And you see, they have some feelings. And we also express our grief. You'll find on the internet how devotees react to this. They didn't express their grief at all the Pakistani children being killed by American drones, or they didn't express their grief at all the literally millions of animals, chickens and fish being killed every single day. But, we also feel for the children who are killed. Well, we should do, but why for them in particular? You should feel because everyone does. See, you have to be human like these people. So, and then people think you're nice and you're religious. And that's what religious people are for, right? In times of grief, people go to the church. Or you can also say something as a Hindu. As Hindus, we also feel blah, 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 blah. And that's what religious people do. That's their function in society, is to make people who are suffering, just like funerals or cremations and people are feeling some grief, you say something and then they feel better. It's all a big charade, actually. It's like in many places, they're professional mourners to set the mood. They come and they're paid to cry at a funeral procession. You see, and then it's socially appropriate to feel, to express and look very sad when someone dies. And then after a few days you can, go out and get drunk as usual, have a good time, so to speak. So there's certain things you have to do. And then when someone dies, you have to call the priest, and then read something from the Bible, and it's all part of the charade of living in this world. But devotees are just like Krishna said to Arjuna. Arjuna is lamenting that you have to kill these people. Krishna was from a materialistic point of view, what Krishna said was cruel. That Arjuna, he's feeling so bad that he has to attack with arrows to kill his own kinsmen and his own gurus. And Krishna, he was so cruel. He didn't give him any sympathy whatsoever. It's more like the Taliban. That's their kind of attitude. They're heartless, aren't they? And they'll just blow people up and kill people. Horrible, nasty people. Is Krishna like that also? May seem like that. That's what you get when you get materialistic, sentimental, so-called religion. You lament for that which is not worthy of lamenting. You're lamenting for the body. You lament for your people. When Arjuna was killing others before, he wasn't lamenting. They also had their brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, friends, gurus, disciples. He wasn't lamenting. Why is he all of a sudden lamenting? Because of his own friends, uncles, aunts, brothers, cousins, gurus, disciples. It was based on his own sense gratification. Krishna was pointing that out. The truth is cruel from a materialistic point of view. Actually, material life means cruelty. Everyone is cruel to everyone else under a cover of being nice. And the truth cuts through all that. But it appears very cruel. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said the sadhu stands with a sword to cut the misconceptions, just like at the yajna. The sacrificial animal is to be chopped. The neck is to be chopped. So it appears to be very cruel. But that is required. We have to go through that, the challenge as a movement. If we don't accept the challenge, then we can't be purified, either individually or collectively. We always have to take the challenge. And it always will be a great challenge. Nowadays, you can't go to open up Japan as a new country, because it was opened up years ago. You can't go to open up Malaysia as a new field for Krishna consciousness. It's already been opened up. You can go to different places in India, but the movement's already well known, so it's always a challenge. But if you're going to places like maybe in Africa, Egypt, that's a challenge. You want to take a challenge. But anywhere to practice or to preach Krishna consciousness, to take up this varnashram, gurukul, it's going to be a great challenge for anyone to take up Krishna consciousness seriously. It's going to be a great challenge. Friends, relatives, they'll all protest. Why are you doing this? Why are you sending your son? Why are you spoiling their life? It's heavy. It's a heavy challenge to parents if they want to send their children to Gurukul. Why are you spoiling your children's life? It's a very, very heavy thing to say. If you're not fully convinced that I have to give my children what Krishna wants and not what these people say, then you'll waver. You won't be able to take full shelter of Krishna. You think, oh, my children, what will they do? People think you have to have an education so you can have a job, so you can live. That's another big illusion created by whole society, because previously people didn't have money, they didn't have educational qualifications, there were no such things as universities, school certificates, or any such things. Most people didn't know how to read. Reading and writing, that came when people became more stupid. Otherwise, that was there, but it was mostly people would learn by hearing. It's only when people became more stupid that reading and writing became the basis of education. So, and then you have to have money. And most people all over the world until recently lived without money. It wasn't required. And nowadays you can't imagine. Money means you grow some food and then you barter other things, and money is for people who are interested in merchants, vaishyas and kshatriyas. Even money, first sign of wealth is cows and grains. And then gold. Gold is not the main thing. Because cows and grains, they have practical utility. Gold has very little practical utility. You can't eat nuts and bolts, you can't eat computer chips, and you can't eat gold either. So very practical. Dhanavan. What is that? Dhanavan. Then Dhanyavan. Gavayo Dhanavan. Dhanyavan Dhanavan. One who's got cows and grains, they are wealthy. Not what gold is. It's just a medium of trade, that's all. But if you don't need trade. What do you need to trade for? That's only if you're interested in unnecessary wealth. So, but people can't imagine that. They think, you have to have money, and you have to send your kids to school. Like I went to school and I got brainwashed that you have to go to school and you have to have a job and you have to do all these things. And now we all believe it. But Srila Prabhupada kindly gave us the knowledge by which we could see through all this illusion. And he gave us the process to combat, to challenge that illusion. To set up our own communities. To set up our own schools. It's a great challenge to do it, and people will try to stop us. They will, the challenge from outside that people say, don't do this, they'll make laws against it, and your own relatives and your friends, they'll be against it. And then it's a great challenge to do it anyway. It's not an easy thing. It's not just you throw a bunch of kids and say, Haribol, and it's all over. But moment by moment, it's a great challenge to train them. And then we also have to give them a taste for Krishna consciousness and understanding. So these are the challenges. But that's what we have to go through. There's no easy way to Krishna consciousness. You may say, well, why don't we do like all these, what we used to call cheating gurus? And, smile at people and tell them about personality development, stress management, and all this kind of thing. What is that? Bhagavad Gita for world peace. It's funny, isn't it? Bhagavad Gita for world peace. Like that's the main object, is world peace. Tell people all these things and make the two major functions of ISKCON are making sure that people get enough to eat and feeding people. Whoever comes to us with an open hand, we fill it up with food. And the other function is in this world in which people are feeling so much stress, to give them a spiritual function. We don't say what the spiritual function is, by which we can make the world a better place to live in. So if you say this kind of thing, completely vague, like Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, they're very just spiritual, no definition of what spiritual means, and just to make the world a better place. People love it. Oh, so good. See, we say this, and then later on we're cheating. So it's easier. It's much, much easier to cheat people than to give them what is actually for their benefit. Much easier. What is actually for their benefit is to surrender to Krishna. They don't want that. If you tell them that, well, you just chant this mantra and give me, used to be $35. Now I heard in America last time it was like $6,000 or something. It's like, it's become really exclusive. A few $1,000s. This TM. Anyway, TM's not very popular these days. So it's just some monetary exchange. You give me the money, and then I give you a mantra, and that's it. People love it. Great. You got money, you can buy a holiday, you can buy a girlfriend, you can buy a new set of clothes. Even if you don't have money, you can get on credit, and you can buy a mantra, where you get all the stress from all these kinds of things, and you just get free, and then you just think I'm God, and wonderful. Very easy to cheat people. To give them the truth is very difficult, because people are inimical to it. They don't want it, they don't like it. But that is our only duty, is to give to people what they need and not what they want. So that's our challenge. Krishna is not asking us to go out and fight against Duryodhana, Bhishma, Drona, Jayadratha, Karna, Ashvatthama, but he's telling you have to fight against all these owls, this owl civilization. Prabhupada said, the owl, if you tell him there's the sun, he'll close his eyes and say, there's no sun, I don't see any sun. So the sun is there, but they refuse to see it. So you have to fight with all these owls. That reminds us of Ashvatthama also. Before he killed, the battle of Kurukshetra was over, and the Kaurava forces were totally devastated. There were still many of the Pandava forces alive, and then he saw some owls. Some mice were asleep, and the owls just came and ravished them, destroyed them. So he got an idea. When the Pandava forces are asleep, I'll just go and kill them all. That was Ashvatthama. So we have to fight against people like this. So, same attitude. They don't want to know what is right. They will insist that what is wrong is right. Even if we try to show that what is wrong is actually wrong, they won't want to accept it. Owls, we have to fight with them. That's Prabhupada's order. And the fight comes in different ways. Like, for instance, catching your kids who are running around and disturbing the class. It's all part of the You can say, let them run. Let them run. Let them just enjoy themselves while they're young. But then you have to train them. Otherwise they'll grow out to be owls. Instead of Tattvadarshi, those who can see the truth, they'll be owls. So you have to train them. It's a great challenge. The whole society will go against. They may also go against you. Parents often say, well, what if our children, when they grow up later, they don't accept? What can you do? You did your duty. You tried. You have to try at least. So, Hare Krishna. Any question or comment about this? No. All right, Hare Krishna. Some things in Krishna consciousness are less challenging than others. Taking prasad is least challenging. So there are some less difficult things also. And we can present to people, in the beginning at least, it's like this. But take prasad, sing, dance. And when it comes to talking with them, then we have to say, especially the leaders, we have to convince them. Say, actually, there are so many problems with everything you think. Now you hear this. So, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Gaura Nitai ki jai.